university that they are not even listed on my deal.
Okay.
We have also tried to go through Sexo.
Mhm.
This one is literally the only one within a multiple state radius. And he's been holding it for us for several weeks.
And the state wants it if we don't take it.
The state and other states want this from across the country as well. So we could get our hands on another dump truck, but we would have to go multiple states away, and the cost would increase significantly for us to get our hands.
What's our lifespan of this truck?
Well, the one we currently have is 21 years, so I would expect
They
it.
don't make them like they used to. I
know. I would expect it at least
Oh my
at least a 10 year. Yeah.
So in all seriousness, I don't have a problem with this.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. I just want to make sure we did our due diligence
Sure.
on the purchase. It's
Absolutely.
fine, whatever. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. I trust that. My only question is to make sure, once upon a time, we had this really long list of vehicle maintenance because we own
Yeah.
a lot of vehicles.
We
And
still,
we had like who was red, who was due, whatever. Can we just make sure? Because I
Sure.
mean,
Absolutely.
maybe we should wait 21 years.
Yeah, we can bring that. We have the list. John just shared it with me again, and we have the ones that are like at end of
Yeah,
life.
let's go
and-
ahead and let's
yeah.
try we get a fleet
Yep,
dealer or something.
absolutely.
So,
Yep.
All right, great.
May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Willis.
I move that the Board of Education purchase a dump truck.
It's been moved by Mrs. Willis, supported by Dr. Body. Any further discussion? Well, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Christina, you get your dump truck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
You have to drive it to the next meeting.
He has to drive it.
I will, and everywhere else.
Okay.
Okay, any other business deemed necessary? All right, we're gonna go ahead and get into our presentations. Whoever wants to.
Sure. Well, good evening, everyone. I really am looking forward to this presentation for so many reasons. I've been here now since July of 2021. And when I got here, what we realized, of course, was that the people that work in Lansing, wow, that is significant. The people who work in Lansing are really wonderful, and they care deeply about our children, and they have for generations. But the systems and structures that were in the school board, in the school district, had been laying fallow a little bit, kind of like the dump truck. And that, one of the things that we're trying to do is to create the best systems and structures possible to empower our people to do the best job possible. And for the last year and change, we've been building a lot of this stuff, but trying it, iterating, and what have you. And today is our kind of first time where we're really going to try to show the larger picture of how all of this is working together. And I could think of no better way than through an ISS where we can sit collegially at the table, where we've invited principals who will tell you about some of the stuff, ET, and of course the great board, to really start to dig deep into where we're moving forward to. So with that, this is an overview of the district initiatives that we are kind of doing in earnest this year that are new and are kind of systemic and structural. Can I have the next slide? Okay. So if you remember when Cordelia presented the handbook, she talked about how all of the things we're trying to do when it comes to discipline, when it comes to the school, et cetera, is going to be around the framework for great schools. If you walk into any one of our schools currently, you'll see a big poster. Teachers are talking about it, students are talking about it, principals are talking about it. And just to remind you where this came from, can I have the next slide, is that's the framework for great schools. It's a way to look at basically what makes a successful school and really a successful district. Again, that outer layer of trust and equity. You can't have a system without those two wonderful things. And then when you look a little bit deeper on a school level, it's effective school leadership, strong family community ties. And then when you look inside of a classroom, you need to have rigorous instruction, collaborative teaching, and supportive environment. And all of this is based on really in-depth research over multiple decades from something called the Chicago Consortium on School Research. CCSR is kind of gold standard research. And what they showed was that there were these 5 things: strong family community ties, effective school leadership, supportive environment, rigorous instruction, collaborative teaching all lead towards student success, student achievement, student success. But what they also found was that without trust, it all doesn't work. One of the great analogies that one of our consultants slash friends, Karen, used was imagine effective school leadership, supportive environment, rigorous instruction, et cetera, were ingredients of a cake. One's the eggs, one's the butter. What trust is the heat. Nothing works without that heat. That if you bake that cake, it all works together. Now, could you have a cake without eggs? Yeah, it probably wouldn't be really good, but you can't even begin to eat the thing without that heat, without that trust. Now, what I'm really proud of is that what we've done in Lansing is we've taken that research of trust plus the 5 and we've added something that we feel is just as important, and that's equity. So right under trust, you see that equity ring. And again, it's a full ring, meaning that it's for the entire district, right? And so this is really powerful to say trust and equity are what we believe in completely. And then these 5 things are what going to lead towards student success. And just on the right, one of the things that we're really trying to work with the principals and of course their staff is that this isn't a gotcha game. This isn't about we're going to hold you accountable and fire you. This is about saying this is what best is. Let's all get there. We believe all schools can meet this. And so it's really an improvement tool rather than this kind of gotcha evaluative thing. Next slide, please. So again, what did CCSR show? They said when these 5 things all work together with trust as the overarching factor and then adding equity, and this is why this thing that you see is the Lansing framework for great schools. Nobody else in the country has added equity to this. We felt it was really important. And so this is now the key to how we are thinking about where we do our foci. Every school district around the country, you say, what's your job? Oh, let's get students to be successful. No kidding, of course. But how? How do you do that? And what are the things that you're looking at? Here, we now have a framework to do. So next slide. So one of the most important things about the framework is saying, if these are our 7 principles, how do we know how we're doing? Well, the first thing is to look at survey data. This is brand new. We've shown this to the principals, on 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And what you've seen now is a first step, and I'm going to turn it over to Jessica and Christina to talk about it. But to give you the understanding is in June, we had staff and students surveyed, and then in August, we had parents surveyed. The reason why it took a little bit longer was that we translated the parent survey into 8 different languages, and we wanted to make sure that it was right. And again, the key features are those 7 bullet points. So what you see to your right is, in fact, the district score on our huge survey. We had 2315 respondents, that is students and staff and parents, and you can see the scores are broken down by the 7 parts of the framework for great schools. And what we'll do, and again, I'm going to turn it over to Christina and Jessica, is then each of those segments you can click on, and then you can see what are the questions that are built for trust, equity, etc. So Jessica, I don't know if you want to explain or.
Sure, I think just to give, I don't really want it to be that whole equity thing, but we'll go for it. Just to kind of tell you a little bit about a little bit of history on this, is that as a former principal and going through the school improvement process and then being in charge of the school improvement process, one of the pieces that we need to do are perception surveys. And I know these 3 know them well. And in the past, we've done about 20 questions that go out to students and to staff and to parents. And that's the information that we bring back to look at for our school improvement. But there's been no basis for framework. So yes, the survey questions happened, but really what we can do with them is really limited, where this really takes us where we can look at each of the areas, and it kind of tells us from strongly disagree to strongly agree. Do you want to talk about the middle one that's not there? for the Likert scale?
Oh, sure.
And the
So just,
rationale for that?
I mean, not to get into psychometrician world, but in a lot of times you get 5-point scales when you're asking questions like this, a 5-point Likert. One of the problems with a 5-point Likert is that there's a middle. And one of the ways that this is built is to make sure that our people are making a decision, good or bad, which really allows us as a district to go forward. So all you psychometricians watching at home, there's a reason why this is a 4-point Likert scale. And so what I really love about this is, you can hover over this, you can see, that's the percentage, that's the count. And then of course the respondents is, 1,657. And what's great is that after today, we're going to give all of the board your own access, and you'll be able to play around with this and see all of the data. We gave it to the principals a couple of weeks ago. We want to give it to the board today, and then we'll release it to the public in a couple of weeks, because we just want to make sure that our systems can handle so many people looking at it. But it's really incredible. This is the first step in not only taking respondents, but then allows us to act on it. So if you notice, so in front of you now is the broken down questions. So this is in supportive environment. So if you look on the top, the supportive environment score is a 2. That's our district. And then discipline is applied to students fairly at this school. And then you get a score. And what's great about this is that if I was a principal or, a SPOC, a head of, let's say, 10 schools, now I can say, wow, your scores are really good in, let's say so, your scores are top in my teachers help me catch up if I'm behind. Oh, well, that's great. But the district, at the school, I feel harassed and bullied. Yeah, that's not so great. I don't want 30% of my kids to feel that way. So it allows us to really say supportive environment. It's what we believe in with the framework. Here are the questions that we're asking to get that score, and then it allows schools to move forward. So Jessica, as deputy superintendent in charge of schools, how will you and your team use this to kind of move students and schools forward?
So I think you kind of captured it well, that we kind of get the overview of all of our schools so that we can really kind of see exemplars in certain areas and pull those out. So if we see a school that does a really great job in certain areas, we can say, so what is it that you're doing? Then share it with everyone else. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just making sure that principals have access, right? So once they have access, they can take it back to their school improvement team and say, what are the things that we really do well? Celebrate those, continue those, because that's really important to know, but then also really look at what are the areas that we need to improve and make a conscious strategic effort through the school improvement process to say, we're going to put these 3 things in place to move the needle on whichever area that we need to focus. So I think this is the first time that we've really seen this in depth of research or survey data, and to be actionable about it. And then once it goes again and we give the survey again this coming year, I think we're planning in November to give it again, and we can do some comparison. How are we doing? And then we'll give it again in the spring and see how we're moving different things. But for my team, it's really important for us to celebrate what's going very well in the district and then spread that information to other principals, because there's greatness happening in all of our schools, and certain principals have different strengths, right? And so just sharing what those processes and procedures that certain schools might have in place at the overview level, but then empowering principals to use the data in their own schools to make decisions. So,
Christina, can you go back to supportive environment? To
Sure.
The
The drill
broken out
down.
questions, yeah. I want to make sure I'm orienting myself to
Mhm.
this information correctly. Can you scroll down, please? I saw one of them. What about being safe
I feel
traveling?
Traveling.
I feel
Right
safe
here.
traveling between home and the school. So are you telling me that
That's very good.
64% of respondents said they agree and 18% said they strongly agree,
Correct.
essentially, that they feel
Mhm.
safe?
Yeah, it was traveling to and from school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
what
that's
we,
amazing,
and-
obviously.
And what we found when we kind of really looked at this data is that the students feel safe in the community, but they do feel like they are being bullied or harassed. So it's really about the culture in the school and the culture in the peer relationships. Because if you look, I feel safe in my class, I feel safe traveling, but then at this school, students harass or intimidate each other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, that makes it really interesting. So I feel safe outside around the school. Yeah, 65, 70%. And what's so nice is, again, when you get access to this, and we're going to provide professional development for any board member that wants this, because you can see it's pretty simple. Like Christina, the way that it works is just go up to the top. So you see those the upright, the arrow, just to get to
Oh, here?
the first. Oh, no. Yeah, you can do that too.
Okay.
So you can now disaggregate it by school. So if you want, let's say Cumberland, and not surprising, the respondents will be lower because we did not ask kindergarten kids to fill this out. So we only asked 6th through 12th grade students. But so those 23 respondents were the staff and the parents. Again, our parent numbers were pretty low because we did it in August. We had translated it, was all this, whatever. Our hope is this is kind of a pilot. And then our hope is that November, next month, we're going to be pushing this out to everybody. Our hope is to have over 10,000 respondents, meaning parents, kids, and staff, which we think we can get. And that end value, that number will make it really credible. One other thing I want to point out is these questions we did not write. These are highly validated questions that have been used literally by millions and millions of survey data points. We do appreciate that some folks are like, oh, hey, Ben, could you just add a question about like the football team? And the answer is, we'd love to, but we can't, right? Because it's not validated, and it's also not part of the 7 pieces of our framework. Because if we believe that those are the 7 pieces that are going to lead towards students' success, we want to make sure that these questions all fit. Now, there are some questions in our question bank that are coded that we haven't used, which will allow us to. But in general, all of these things are built over and over again. Dr. Bobby?
We added equity on our own. How did we get the validated questions for equity?
Great question. So there are questions that have been validated with equity because there have been a lot of work on equity. Nobody's added it to this framework. So we were able to take some of those questions through CCSRO, and then New York did this, Philly did this, a couple of other school districts. So those questions came from a bank that were validated. But no district so far has said they're going to hold themselves accountable to equity. So they didn't want to add, they didn't want to put it. But we're crazy enough to do it.
Okay. So it seems to me as though some of these items must be reverse coded. Is that correct? So some of them we would want a higher score, right? Like how many teachers are eager to try new ideas?
right.
We want a high score. But at this school, students harass, bully, or intimidate other students, that we would want a low score.
Exactly.
So those are reverse coded. How is that reflected in the means at the top?
But yeah, so that's a great point. So the average Likert scale mean is we did reverse code each of the individual ones to give you that correct answer. The problem is I'm not 100% sure for every one of them because we had to do it by hand. But what we were using was survey data that's been used a lot, and I know they reverse coded it, so we kind of followed them.
Okay.
I'd say with like 97% accuracy we're there. And again, that's why we haven't open it up to the public, because what's been great is when we showed it to the principals, some people are like, what about this one? It's like, oh, great, we can fix that. But yeah, the numbers should be accurate.
Okay, and I don't want to get ahead of
No,
myself
of
if you're
course.
going to get to this later. But in talking about trust, who is the trustor and who is the trustee?
Great. So what's nice is all. So there are questions like, I trust my principal. I trust my teacher. I trust the students here. Like, so the trust metric is for each individual person asking. So, I mean, you could see, why don't you click on trust and you can see how this works.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, go up. And then actually, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, because it's a small, we go to all. That way we won't sell out. We won't sell out
Got
the
it.
school. And then if we click on trust, then these, there's, and then, Yeah. It should be coded for trust. My teachers treat with me respect. So can you click on the trust where it's just the trust questions?
Here.
Yeah.
It's
Or go down. Because I think you might have to scroll down. So because these are coded, these are all the questions.
Oh,
These
I'm
aren't the
sorry.
trust coded.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When we drill up and down, I get,
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
when we drill up and down, I get when we change by school, the respondent number changes, but when we drill up and down, why are the respondent numbers changing?
Survey fatigue. So, we started off with everybody asking questions about 2,300. By the last question, we were at whatever. So,
I don't know what's going on.
okay. So again, this is why we will be able to get you, let's say, just trust questions, and then you can see how they go. So,
There we go.
oh, great.
Well, still,
Yeah, here we
there's
go.
still some of them.
Yeah. So there's the trust score, and then, I feel like I belong. There should be a question like, I trust my principal, I trust my teacher, things like that. The school I bully or harass. Can you scroll all the way down?
I trust them.
Yeah, exactly. Teachers in the school trust each other. So that's the nice thing is that trust metric isn't just, I trust this person. It's like, I think teachers here trust each other, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's there.
That's a lot.
So again, this is just the beginning, but you can see how powerful something like this can be. And what we hope is that for the next month, we show the community that, look, I was told that we've done surveys all the time. I remember once I was visiting a school and I was like, oh, what survey data do you have? Oh, we did all these surveys. I said, well, where's the data? Oh, we didn't get the results. Or I've never used the results. Well, what's the point, right? Here, we now can use this based on what we believe in our framework. So I don't know, Jessica, is there anything more about the survey data you want to
I
talk
would just
about?
say it's nice to have just a common survey for the entire school district, 1. 2, everyone can see the results. So even though our principals did the survey perception data before, there was no way to collect it centrally. And then we would have different questions at different schools based on what the principals thought was important, which is great, but this is really all encompassing. So I think having it both at the school level and then us being able to see it at the district level to also make decisions and choices for resources and supports and those kind of things is really important.
How you are planning to use the result of this? Are you going to plan one by one the 7, or we are going to use that next year? How we are going to incorporate that in the strategic plan? How we are going to use all this information to change the culture that we have?
Sure.
I think almost everything that we do, Ben has done a great job with linking it back to the Great Schools Framework, honestly. So when we're doing certain initiatives, for example, if you look at the very center, of course, is student achievement, because that's the most important thing. But we know that you can't have student achievement if you don't have trusting relationships at the school, right? So building on your climate and culture. I think the way that we're using this is really looking at, you'll see more pieces to this, but as we go through the different pieces or layers of the Great Schools Framework, there are things tied to each of those so that we get metrics to be able to then make decisions at the school or at the district level to move us forward.
So like one of the things that Jessica's department is really working on is the workshop model. So kind of an idea of how do you teach for a period, like what is high and rigorous instruction? Well, the hope, of course, is if we're focusing on that instruction in that class, then the rigorous instruction piece is going to go up. Oh, how are we dealing with effective school leadership? We're working with our principals. We're doing all of these things. But what's nice is now that we know what the questions are to ask for effective school leadership, we dig in deep into this and say, wow, at this school, the principal is really well trusted and people like, but the students feel that they're not being engaged. So the Department of Instruction will look at that, go into that school and say, hey, look, your instructional scores are low. What can we do to now get rigorous instruction or whatever it is? So this is your kind of overarching template that then allows our Department of Instruction, our heads of schools, our principals to be empowered to now go in and do it. So it's a nice beginning, and then you'll see the other things that we're doing as well.
So when this survey was being submitted, students filled it out, right? What was their, were they excited about it? Was it just another thing, or did they, can they manipulate this answers? I mean, let's be honest, I mean, they might want to answer this because it's
Yeah,
gonna be this.
yeah, you can certainly answer it, Marcel. I mean, I think this was new to them. What I was happy with was the number of respondents. I wish LaDonna could answer, but we did not ask third grade students to answer this. But from what we got from respondents was what seemed like pretty accurate answers. And I think, I did speak to some teachers actually here in Everett that were giving it, because I think we gave it mainly in our social studies classes. And so I talked to some social studies teachers, and, it was one of the first times where students felt that their voice, they at least had one. Now, it's now our job to listen to that voice, right? And think that in November, when we do this again, if we've done a good job, students will be like, wow, they're going to listen, let's do it. And we have to do the same thing with parents and with faculty. But I don't know, I mean, Principal Carruthers, I mean, did they do it willingly, or did you have to lock them in a room? I don't
No, they were willing to take it. The one thing that we recognized when we were looking at it with our leadership team, because we had a sit meeting, we talked about how we're going to work on our low ends and what we need to do as teachers, as just staff members, because we want our students to feel that they are trusted. So with that being said, this was very powerful for us because we looked at it for the first time at our administrative meetings, like, what can we do? And the first thing for me is, how can we make sure our students feel safe? Because they don't feel safe, how they want to learn. And when we look at that, we weren't shocked, but we were pleasantly surprised that people do feel safe and they trust what they're getting at Eastern High School. So with that being said, we know we have a foundation to work from, so we're pretty excited on how to move forward.
Thank you. So not that I don't want to talk about survey data forever. It is one of my favorite things. In fact, when I was a professor, I did an entire 3-hour seminar on survey data, which I will not bore you all with, but we have more to get to. But again, we will get you passwords for your own codes, and you'll be able to search this data completely. And then we'll give professional development. If anybody wants help navigating through it, we'll go through it with you. So the second initiative that we're really proud of is our ID system. You can see the very famous principal of Wexford is both here on stage, here with us and on screen. If you remember, one of the things that, we've been talking about for a while now is, how do you create the most safe and secure building and community possible? And one of the things that you have to do is you have to have IDs. I always try to say to everybody who will listen, think about the best. When you walk into Goldman Sachs, which is probably the hardest place to get into, you have an ID. You get greeted by security. You are we want every one of our children to think. I mean, I don't really like bankers, so whatever. But I want our children to think that they deserve the best, and to be able to come into a place where we know who you are, where we can greet you at the front, where we can have one entrance. Because certainly with the world today, I mean, the stuff that happened at Waverly yesterday and East Lansing 2 days ago, we have to control our buildings. That's the most important thing. And then to create an ID system that allows kids to come in, check in, you can get a visual on them. I mean, I'm going to turn it over to Liz, but I was a principal for 10 years. I greeted every kid every morning. I could see if they were hurt. I could see if they were happy. I could see, and if you had 16 different entrances, you can't do that. Also, you have to, in this day and age, we only want one place where people can come in. You can have a million exits, right? You can all run out, but you have to have one place to come in. And by having the CAS system, having this one place of entry, and then all the functionality is amazing. So I think you've seen this video, but I love it so much because of the syrup that we'll play it again, and then you'll see the addition that we just added today. So this explains the card, and then we'll have a real life user in the principal of Wexford to tell all about it, and Principal Carruthers too. So thank you.
The Lansing School District now has a new ID called the One Card. This is a way we can provide identification to help increase security convenience for students and staff. The One Card is a laminated card similar to a driver's license, and it contains your name, picture, name, school year, and an identification barcode.
Thanks, Mom.
Your One Card should be displayed at all times while you're at school. It can be worn on a lanyard or by clipping it to your clothes.
Have a good day at school.
The One Card will greatly enhance safety on Dean buses and provide parents, school staff, and transportation personnel with a real-time electronic record of the entire trip. Every parent, guardian, and family member through the app can see if their child has arrived at school on time, the time they exit the school, or enter and leave the bus, providing additional security for your student. With the One Card, the Lansing School District can create a personalized experience for every student when they walk into the school. And individualized notifications are available to every parent, guardian, and family member through the app. The school staff can verify who is in the building at all times, including students, staff, vendors, and all visitors. As visitors arrive, they will provide a government-issued ID, and once verified in the system, they will receive a printed customized visitor badge. This allows staff to know who is in the building at all times. Throughout the day, the One Card can be used to verify access into areas, including lunch periods. Do not place stickers or other marks on the One Card unless they are provided by your school. If you are a new student or new to your school, staff will assist you in getting your first or new One Card. All students will have their picture taken if it's not in the system. You'll receive your One Card shortly after the start of the new school year. Please check it over for any errors in printing. If there is an error, staff will print a new card. If it is lost or damaged, contact your school administrator to order a replacement card. In the interim, you'll be given a temporary One Card. There may be a replacement charge.
When they're loading up the second one, can you hear me? Yeah. You can see the functionality of this card is so terrific because, not only does it allow them in and out, but the stuff with the buses and the stuff with the lunches. So we want to play the second video and then we'll talk about in real life how this works.
We introduced the One Card last year and continue to roll out additional features this year. For example, parents can download the app and choose how they want to be notified, including pop-up notifications. In addition, we monitor real-time school and student data, so we can provide additional assistance or training to schools in need. Some schools can use the One Card for lunches and sporting events. Over the next few weeks, we will be introducing the One Card to Dean Transportation busing. All of this will help us to continue to add safety measures for our students and families.
We're really looking forward to getting this on all the Dean buses. We did a trial run. We did a trial run both yesterday and today. I don't know how it went.
So it went really well, actually. The first run that we did yesterday, we did it in the afternoon. So we started at Dean, went and picked up the students, went home with them, went back to Dean. After that, there were a couple hiccups with the machinery, but we got those resolved. And then this morning went very smoothly. So we did a beginning run and everything. So we're looking to roll that out next week and get that going.
Yeah, and you can see the stuff for parents getting the notification. They can go click onto the bus. They know that they're there. Click off. They know that they're exited. It's really powerful. But yeah, yeah, of course.
What about CATA? Isn't it,
Cata.
Yeah, so because CATA is a totally different system, it's a little bit different. They are working on an RFID chip kind of reader, but that's going to be for them because the way that CATA has to work is they can't make something separate for our kids rather than their the normal passengers. But we have been in contact with them and they know the system we're using. So I don't know if they are, but we are trying. So I don't know, Marcel, Liz, or and LaDonna, you guys use this too. I don't want to keep you out. Maybe talk about lunch and the difference, or just coming in and why it's helpful. Not to lead you. You can also tell me it's terrible, but whatever.
Hello, everyone. I'm Liz Bishop, principal at Wexford Montessori. We bring about 365 students in every day in less than 10 minutes. So the system goes really, really, really smoothly. Myself and my secretary, Erin, are both at the door. Thank goodness we know all, and we've gotten to know each kid's last name because if they don't have an ID, we have to plug in their last names, but it goes really, really fast for the two of us. Best thing, kind of like what Ben said, is we get to say good morning to every student every day. They're greeted by both of us because we're both, good morning, John, good morning, Christina. And when it's their birthdays and it plays a happy birthday song, it is just like everybody in the hallway kind of dances and the kids get like this huge celebration. So it's really brought a sense of community into our school. And in my absence, on days when I'm not there to do like just the scan part of it, we have an 8th grade young lady who steps up and she's like, okay, put your ID right here. And she takes care of our kids. And I think it's going to become a kind of a job for some of our older kids to be able to do that. And it's a sense of responsibility for them to help out. Some other things that have been really great, just having that one point of entrance. And I think it makes parents feel really, really, really confident when they walk in and they, little ones, they drop off their kid. We're like, we've got them. They're great. We've got them. We'll take care of them. And they're like, oh, okay. And they leave. Not that like trepidation of, oh my goodness, is my kid going to know where to go? Has somebody noticed they're there? So that's been really nice for parents too. I think as a parent, I think I would appreciate that, especially with my little ones. So.
And then for the high schools, we didn't start it last year, but we've been starting to now swipe in for lunch. So
Yes, we started swiping for lunch about 2 weeks ago. Been working great. There was a couple glitches earlier, but students now know whether it be A or B lunch, that they can't get into lunches. So we made sure we take care of that. But also we did a homecoming dance. They had to swipe in for that. So all those things are happening for us right now. We're even looking at when we have our SAT test, have our students swipe in. So that way they can, instead of having a teacher say, oh, I know who you are, we'll have them swipe in everything. So what we're trying to do is incorporate the card in high school. You have a driver's license, get used to bringing your card to school. We're trying to make sure they understand that. So for us, we're trying to look at any and every idea that individuals have that's going to help us get those students acclimated to carrying an ID and making sure they have it, not for just in high school, but when they move on.
Just one concern, I'm at Kendall, LaDonna Mass at Kendall. We're pre-K3 building. And one concern that a parent had for our littles, very long littles, is having that ID card on them all the time. So for safety and security. So what we came up with the way to put it on their backpack. So then they swipe in, then it goes directly into their backpack. And, he loved the idea. He loved the fact that they were actually swiping in for security, but just that we were able to kind of solve that one problem that could make that safety a little bit better.
Yeah, and what LaDonna said is so important, right? Is each of these wonderful principals knows their community. From a superintendent standpoint, we know this is important. How it is interacted in each of the schools, let them decide, right? For Eastern and for the high schools, the best thing about this, in my mind at least, is for the lunches. Not that any child would try to go to 3 different lunches, but it does happen. And and I'll tell you, the first day they tried it here in Everett, I was here because I wanted to watch it, and they certainly turned away a not insignificant number of children. And they're like, but they're like, you're in B lunch. I see, this is you. And they're like, okay, and then they go, but, without a system like this, you don't even have that conversation. So it really starts to change the dynamic of a school. But again, empowering the principals to say, yeah, put it in the backpack. That's fine, as long as you're using it to swipe in and use the system. So, Jessica, you want to? Oh, sorry.
I just
Yeah.
thought-
Oh,
I thought of
please.
something
No,
else
of course.
That's really, we also appreciate we have our students swipe out when they leave, if they're leaving early. Not everybody swipes out, but when they're leaving early, if they come, you call them down to the office and then they have to swipe out. And for some reason, I think that's changing parents, like their thoughts on signing their kid out early, because the kid, it makes this ding ding and, they have to come down and sign out and everything. And it just seems like it's not happening nearly as much. So I'm hopeful that will kind of curtail. We know kids have appointments and stuff, but it was happening just so you didn't have to go through the pickup line. And I think they're really starting to do that less and less. So, and it's a safety thing if you're
Are you
missing a
saying
kid.
they would pull their kid out of school before the day ended
Oh,
so that
yes.
they would not have to go through
Oh,
the process
yes.
of being?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
yes.
To avoid traffic.
To avoid
Yes.
traffic?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I guess it's different when you live around the corner from your kid's school, but I'm like, can I leave him there longer? Keep him for extra time.
You would be
Wow.
amazed, but I think it's actually less than that. So that's
That's
helpful.
good.
And we have a new bus loop and
Minutes
everything. so
matter,
it's
right?
great.
Minutes
Yes.
matter.
I have a question about the feature, the notification feature. Did I see, so are we having them swipe in at the beginning of the day or multiple times throughout the day for like high schools where they switch class? I only asked because as the angel student that I was, in the event I was late to or, missed the period altogether, oh my gosh, if my mother got a notification that I left.
Yeah, so
I probably still would have done it, but.
Right. So we haven't gotten it to period attendance yet, but there is that functionality and we are planning on it. The most important for us to really was the lunches and going in, but that is the functionality. The only reason why it's probably going to be a while is it would mean that each teacher would have to have the swipe in piece. And so we didn't want to buy a bajillion of them until we knew we had the system down pat. So, yeah.
Also, I think this is preparing them for life after school. You see everybody from MSU, the hospital, the city. We all have IDs,
Yeah.
and you have to go through some sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just
It's great.
giving them that experience, and they will be.
Absolutely. So Jess, you want to just?
I would just say that one piece that I was really excited about is the visitor passes, right? So they put in their ID, it does a check to make sure that they're safe to be in our schools. It prints the ID, it has their picture on it. So then as a principal or as a teacher, I know, oh, this person's already gone through the main office. They're supposed to be here. Their name is on there. You can greet them. It can be a community builder, right, too. It kind of, probably about 10 years ago when I was a magnet principal, we took a site visit out to Washington and we went through the school and several of us had to go back to the car to get our IDs to actually go into the school and do the visit. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. Like, this is really state of the art. And then here we have it. So it's just really cool that it's kind of taken us a while to get up to speed, right? But I think it's just a really wonderful way for everyone to know that safety and security and community building is really important to Lansing. So
Any place you go that has a safety vestibule, you have to show ID and have access. So this is not unreasonable.
Did you say that when they swipe their driver's license, it does a background check,
it does a brief scan to make sure that they're not,
like a sex offense?
you got it. Yep. And so if it is in an alerts, and then we don't allow them further into the building.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
I want that app. What is
No.
it?
Well, we'll be sending it out shortly. So, yeah.
One other thought too, when you were talking about like maybe a different analogy besides the banker, it's like a VIP.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, everybody now is going through this, and we just owe it to our children and our faculty, right? It's everybody. So, but
And we had our subs, every sub signs in the same way. And we actually had one sub who refused to do it. So we had to make sure that she was okay with the district when she said, I don't want to scan my ID. So we make our sub do it every day also.
Yeah, and you can see, I don't know if you want to go through the list or, oh, that too, wait, go back.
sorry, yeah.
There's so much more.
Do you want me to go back?
Yeah, just to show the list of all the things it can do. Yeah, so again, all of the,
You know,
sorry.
I'm getting
Sorry,
there.
Trying to
it's
be
all
too
right.
tech savvy.
I didn't know how to go backwards.
It's,
So,
You just use the left arrow, I think.
oh, no, I really got
That's all right.
Yeah, so you can see all of the different things that it has the capacity to do, the student monitoring, so everything from, food, event scanning. One of the fun stories that the company that makes this talks about, which the guys that created this were educators in Baltimore in the 80s and 90s. So if you know anything about the Baltimore school district in the 80s and 90s, it was pretty
Assume we
rough. It was. Have you ever watched The Wire? So it is about as rough as it got. And one of the guys was an assistant principal, and they didn't even know who was in the building. And so the first thing he did was he had a Polaroid camera, and he just had them take a picture and just put it around their necks with the name of their kid, right? Because it was a one way to control the building. And so what I love about all of the systems that we use, every single one of them was made by educators, people who are in schools, who know what's going on. And so what's so powerful about this, and we haven't brought it, but you were talking about going to each class, Rachel. How about the bathroom? So there was a school that they found was these kids were spending all this time in the bathroom and they had no idea why. Well, they started to look. A kid had set up an Xbox and kids were going into the bathroom playing Xbox for charging for 5 minutes. And of course, all the school did was they put a swipe at the bathroom and it all stopped, right? And so you can see from student monitoring, it's huge. The access control, it's everything from a timestamp to, you can create block lists. So of course, the system that we use is kind of a sex offender list, but we could have an internal Lansing list where you block somebody. It could be like for a football game, these folks cause trouble, you would just block them from coming in. Behavior management, student transportation, that's where we're really going to be at the vanguard. Not every district that has this has done it for buses, but those that have done it have said that it is just incredible. So you can see this kind of panoply of things. And then now, if you want to go to the next one, this gives you an example of what we get, right? So if you look at, let's say, Pat and Gill, you can see that they have 603 enrollment, that they had 534 entry scans, 463 people were on time, 71 were tardy, 69 were absent. Did they use a manual entry barcode and then an exit scan? So 17 kids were out. And don't worry about the average daily number. We do know that we're not hitting every kid because we're still working on it. But what's nice is every day we get this printout, and then Jessica and her wonderful team can go and say, hey, what's going on here at, school X? What, is it really that you had these absences, or, oh, you got 6 new kids and they don't have IDs yet? Totally cool, right? And so our hope is by the end of October, you're going to see some really clean numbers where the attendance will be accurate. The other thing too that I know the teachers really want is, will we ever be able to use this system to actually be our legal attendance? The answer is probably not, because you want teachers to actually take the attendance in the classroom. But what you can do, and what we do in much larger districts, is you can compare the two, and then you worry about, especially in high school, the kid that's scanned in and never made it to class, the Rachel Willises of the, so we're able to do that as well. So if you want to go to the next slide. So now the next really huge district initiative, you all know that we've been talking really since we started about how do we help our most at-risk kids? This district has tried multiple iterations. The Wood Creek Center for something, the Pleasant View, they've tried a lot of stuff and very well meaning. But the big mistake or the big problem or the big issue was that when you create something for kids at risk, you got to make it special. You got to make it personal. You got to make it warm. You got to make it in an environment that a kid wants to go to, because they are clearly not wanting to go to school. And so this year, as you know, we were able to hire Adam, steal him from Fenton, and really think about, what could alternative education look like in Lansing? And so I want to turn it over to Adam to talk about the Learning Hub. And this is a picture from the actual Learning Hub. It's not just like clip art. So, so Adam, take it away if you want the next slide.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. I appreciate that, Ben. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to thank Ben, to thank the executive team. Really, since I started in July, everybody has been absolutely phenomenal. The program that I started in Flint 7 years ago, still going strong, but they're renting one classroom in an old Flint building and trying to find different space, and to come to Lansing and have a building, to have a school district that's committed with resources and personnel is just amazing. So I just want to make sure to thank everybody. Also want to thank, I know the principals, the high school administrative staff have been outstanding. So I always use this analogy, and if I had $1 for every time I used it the last 2 months, I'd be retired. But we're building the plane in the air, truly building a plane in the air. So as we bring in new team members, that means more of the plane is being built, but we're still flying all over the place. But I want to thank our team, Dorcas Shoemake, Jeremic Claiborne, and then 2 urban fellows, urban leadership fellows, Vincent Price and Nate Gatlin. They've just been phenomenal as well. So just want to make sure, it's a team effort and a community effort. So a little bit about the hub concept. I guess the easiest way to put it is typically that traditional school setting, and I'm generalizing, but we as learners have to adapt to the school. So the rules, the policies, the expectations, and there's good reason for that. However, there are young men and women that, for whatever reason, many reasons, could not adapt to that traditional setting. So when we meet with students and we meet with their families, the first thing we say is, we are going to adapt to you. And they look at me like, what in the world are you talking about? And then we dig into, what don't you like about school, or what didn't work for you? And of course, the parents or the grandparents tend to talk more than the student when they answer that question. And so the hub concept is, we're adapting to that learner. And the big piece of the hub experience is the personal learning plan. So there's the academic plan, which I'll talk to that in a second, the college career path, and then the community engagement project, which ultimately will be aligned to that college career path. So when we meet with the student and we meet with the family, of course, we're looking at transcripts. And the big reason why students are at the hub is because they're deficient in credit. So the average hub student, which we have 35 students, we meet with 3 families next week. And by the way, our goal was 30 students by the end of first semester, 60 by the end of the year. I've already said we're going to cap it at 40 right now. It's quality over quantity, but we'll definitely be at 6. Well, I would sure we're going to be at 60, if not more, by the end of the year, we hope. So when we sit down and we meet with students, first things first is we look at those transcripts. And our students, there's a big mountain to climb when it comes to a high school diploma. That mountain is still there when they transfer or enroll in the hub. It's just that pathway up the mountain is going to look different for them. And they get to own that. We tell them, you get to write the narrative. You get to write your own story. And so they're online, so they take classes through Edgenuity. And so it's really self-paced. It is asynchronous. The difference, though, is they come to the hub and they come to academic lab, and they have supports there. So they have small group instruction as needed. We have Michigan State's actually starting next week. So tutors from Michigan State that are coming in. We haven't done this yet because, again, we're still building that plane, but invitations will go out to retired teachers or community members that want to come in and help our students. In Flint, we partner with Kettering University, and most of those students are helping students with math and science because many of them are engineer students. So the credits is the main, really right now, is the three high schools had the charge of look at your 23, really 22 cohorts, students that did not graduate, and then 23 cohort. And if they're deficient in credit in such a way that they can't catch up with their cohort this year, and then meet with their families, meet with the student, and refer them to the hub. And that has been wonderful. The three high schools have done a phenomenal job. We have young men and women, again, 1 credit, 2 credits, maybe 6 or 7 here and there that are coming into the hub. They're working. And we explain to them that, guess what? You get to work on math on a Saturday. By the way, many of our students, because we can get in and see exactly when they've logged in and what work they've done, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. Now, when I've talked to people over the years and they look at me and they say, well, what kind of, you can't learn at 1, 2 in the morning. Well, then you don't know the teenage brain. The other piece of that is they're online, they're learning, they're knocking out assignments, they're taking quizzes at 1 in the morning. They weren't doing that the last 4 years in high school. So let's take that as a win. Let's celebrate that. So the credit piece is huge. The other reason why they may be with us is attendance, for whatever reason. One thing that many of students that come to the hub, there's not this sense of belonging. For whatever reason, now it may be that, and you know this, and the research shows that the longer you stay away from school, the more anxiety builds up and the less that you are motivated to go to school. You're kind of out of your friend groups, or you're looked upon as, kind of shunned. And so many of our students that were truant, we start with that sense of belonging. We start with, they're kind of like the ID cards, this is special. You are someone that we want to see you every day. And if you're not here, we're going to annoy you by texting you and calling you and calling your parents as well. And they quickly find out that they have people that they can trust and rely on, and that's very important. The other reason is work. We actually have a new student we met with yesterday who works in the evenings and into late at night. He is a sole, I guess, breadwinner for his family, 18-year-old young man, and he's not getting up and going to school. So he is going to come to our afternoon lab, and he's going to sleep in and come to our afternoon lab. The other reason, family, for whatever, right now we have 3 teen parents. We have actually 2 young ladies that have infants, and then we have a young lady that's expecting midwinter. And then special circumstances. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Cordelia and her team. We're still kind of creating the process. And at the end of the year, superintendent will receive kind of this sustainability plan. And so as there's turnover and as new people come in, there will be a process, there will be criteria, and it will be very clear. And so Cordelia and our teams are working together. But before there's that kind of formal criteria, we have some students that Cordelia has, met with that are coming off of expulsion or suspension, or instead of just kind of washing our hands of students, okay, you're expelled for this amount of time, we'll see you in a couple months. That's not going to happen in Lansing anymore. And so she's been wonderful, her team. And so again, we're kind of building those processes out. And the main thing with the hub experience is community partners. We have lunch and learns, which the Superintendent Schuldner and the executive team is coming October, I think it's 28th, a couple Fridays. And they're going to bring a nice lunch. That's not, well, our school lunch is amazing.
You're right.
But sorry, Jody.
Thank you,
But
Jody.
it is. But sometimes it's nice to have, Chick-fil-A is the popular one. And so with the lunch and learns, we will, for instance, we have a gentleman that works for Kellogg's Cereal, will be coming in next Friday, bringing lunch and talking about, the process of making cereal. But in that, he's going to tell his story of battling through adversity, what it took for him to get to where he's at now, what it means to work for a big company, and so on. And we want to just have our students see all the opportunities out there for them. So just a side note, we are prepping our students because when the executive team comes to meet with them, it's actually going to be a roundtable, and it's going to be all based on the strategic plan, and they feel like they have a voice, and they're going to ask some hard questions. And then the executive team will be able to ask them some hard questions, and we'll have that conversation. So with that said, the community partnership's huge. We are partnering with the Child Family Charities, and they're actually hiring a social worker where we will have a clinic in the hub, actually in Pleasant View Magnet School. And so she will be working with our students, but what's nice about this individual is she's also working with the students' siblings, families. She will be having other clients that will be coming in after hours. And what's the benefit with that partnership is that while we certainly are paying for that this year, the social worker will be billing back insurance. And so that sustainability plan and with this community partnership is in the next 2 to 3 years that our cost goes down to the point where it's 100% paid for, and we are not on the hook. So as the money trees grow quickly in Michigan, we know history repeats itself. And so at some point, we don't want to be in a situation where we have to cut a social worker from the hub, and that's where that community partnership is key. So with that, I could sit and talk forever. Are there any questions about the hub? Yes.
Are these all like teenage students? There aren't adult learners there?
Correct. That's a great question. The oldest student is 19. We actually have a 21-year-old that we are trying to enroll, but we have not been able to connect with him. That is at a traditional school, but aged out, and it's kind of was in flux. So we could have somebody older than 19, but right now the oldest is 19.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Do you have a library in the hub? I'm really loving the learning hub. It's really dear to my heart. Do you have a library? Is there a space?
Yes, we do. And that library will be a coffee shop.
I love it.
Yeah, so the community engagement projects eventually will be individualized, but because we're very new staff, our staff just started last week. And so we decided that we're going to just do a collaborative community project, and then next year we'll spread our wings. But we're actually going to turn the media center into a coffee shop, and Sodexo is going to be a part of that. And so our students, in fact, I have a picture on my phone, but we had 2 students draw out what the logo was going to be. And in fact, just met with Dr. O'Neill today, and we talked about, first of all, there's books we have to find that are over there somewhere, but ordering some new books. Yes. And also I want to point out that we share a building with Capital Area Online. And so with that, we're sharing some staff, office staff, and also that library is for our virtual students that will be coming in as well. Yeah.
How is the attendance? Even it's too soon to say, but how is?
Yeah, no, that's so attendance is phenomenal in the world of alt ed. And so what I mean by that is we have 35 students, 50% of them come to every lab. 100% of them have attended at least one lab since the beginning of school. So if they're virtual learners. So in the state of Michigan's eyes, they don't have to come to, well, hopefully they're not watching because they think they do have to come to lab. And they do have to. So if they, strike that. If they are not present at the lab, then they receive a text, they receive a phone call. We've Zoomed with some students. So attendance is that two-way communication. We're interacting with them. But their attendance thus far in the lab has been solid. And so many of our students were not going to school, or if they were here, they weren't going to class, like certain people at this table maybe back in the day, and walking the halls. And I'm not sure which, maybe all three schools, but I do know that I'm hoping, and we're hoping by them transferring to the hub, we can capture their passions, their interest, do this in a different way, and at the same time alleviate some frustrations at the traditional high school as well. And it's probably too early to tell, but we've had some students that were attending school but not attending class and causing some issues, and they'll admit that.
Well, because it's so important, the communication process with them and the families, because these students are part of the Lansing School District. And for the last few years, we have really experimenting with them in one way or another. And now you are having a new vision of the superintendent and the board that I think is going to be really solid and beneficial to all students. Then I know it's the beginning, but I think we should feel there is a hope there that now we are going to take care of them. And thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have, we communicate with both student and parent, just like anybody else. But if they're not at the hub and they haven't communicated with us, we then reach out to both student and parent.
So if they're not at the hub, I'm sorry, Dr. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. If they're not at the hub for whatever reason, but they're home and they're logged in, you know that, right?
Yes.
So they don't necessarily have to be at the hub if they're doing work at home, or is there a specific number of hours they have to be at the hub and the rest they can do at home at whatever time?
They're essentially virtual learners, meaning the expectation is to work at home or wherever it may be. They are expected to be at the hub Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for at least 2 hours. So we run a 9 to 11 and a 12 to 2, and we tell them that we will never kick them out of the hub. So we do have students that are there from 9 to actually 3. We have some students that will come early. We have some students that walk. So they'll come to the hub, go home, then come back. So that's where the kind of the hub is, where I describe it where we all want to go to a certain place in the world. And if we fly out of Detroit, chances are we're all flying into either Chicago or Atlanta together. We're saying bye and then we're off to our, and so that's kind of the hub concept is we're all in one place. So we're getting tutoring, we're getting help academic wise. We have speakers that come in with the lunch and learns. We have different, for instance, the pitcher Streets 517, many of you may know them. They came in and ran some team activities. So there's different things other than them just sitting on their computer during that time, but they're expected to actually work at home. And their academic plan will show that they're not going to catch back up and they're not going to be working, progressing towards their diploma if only they work on their academics during that lab time. If that makes sense.
Do they get a high school diploma or a GED?
So the goal is high school diploma. It's 18 credit diploma. And We do know that there will be times where we will guide the student to a GED just based on age, based on credit. I sat down with a young man the other day and kind of drew a mountainside and where he was credit-wise, where he needed to be to play sports. Because our students, if they're eligible, certainly can participate in athletics. He wanted to play football, couldn't do that based on credits. So we drew out a plan that if he wanted to play basketball, there's just not enough time in the day for him to be ready during tryouts. But if he really wanted to do that, he can try out, he can be part of the team practice. And then by the end of the season, as we mapped it out, he'd be eligible to play in a game. And that's up to him whether he wants to take that challenge on. We certainly are there to help him achieve that. But we want our students to receive the diploma, but we also know there's other opportunities or there'll be situations where we steer them to a different GED or certification.
Do you have any non-English speakers?
We don't yet, but we certainly will. I know Sergio, when I came on board, that was one thing he mentioned to me, that we are going to be in a situation. And so we know that that's going to occur. We do have a student who is English speaking, but no one else in his family is. But he's 18. He's done a really good job as far as being that bridge between us and the parent. He really is out on his own, so there's not a lot of communicating, but we know that's going to happen. That's going to occur.
You mentioned that you have some students who are walking to the hub. These kids could also be eligible for a CataPass or gas card, right?
They have them.
Okay.
Yes, we have 2 with gas cards and the rest have CataPasses.
Okay.
In fact, part of our community partnership is having the students be out in the community. We want them to see themselves as leaders and change agents, positive deviants, and deviating from the status quo. And so I could not make it, but the team took 6 students, 2 of them met them there, but the team and 6 students jumped on the Cata bus out in front of Pleasant View and took the bus to the Potter Park Zoo Monday morning.
Cool. I have one more question. Oh, just there might be board members who might be willing to contribute to a lunch and learn or to be, the speaker at one.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do, we have
Probably like 9 of them.
we have a letter, invitation letter, and I will send one specifically addressed to the school board. I'll send it to Ben and then send it out, and that would be phenomenal.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thanks.
Go
A
ahead.
couple questions, I'll shoot it over to you, Mr. Lopez. Could you talk a little bit about the difference between what we're offering at the hub and what we did at Wood Creek?
I can't because I don't know what was offered at Wood Creek. So
Maybe.
I will defer. Oh, yeah, sure.
Just want to make sure. Okay. So what we were doing at Wood Creek, we were still doing like an online learning component or an online learning module. So that part is similar, but everything else that he has mentioned is above and beyond anything we ever did at Wood Creek.
So Wood Creek had a school code and those kids were all considered like graduates of Wood Creek or not. So with this diploma, like does this hub have a school code? Are they considered like an extension of one of the 3 high schools? How is that working?
They have their own code.
Okay.
Yep.
What does that mean?
So like they count as their graduation rate that they get their, I don't know. why you asked
Accountability
me.
for test scores.
Right, they get their test scores, they get their foundation allowance, it all goes under that.
It goes under what, Pleasant View?
Lansing
No.
Learning Hub.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, that was part of the issue.
That's
okay. I don't know why you asked me. Like,
For your entire life.
9,000, but I skipped school. So then what are we doing with adult ed opportunities then?
Sure. I wish Sergio was here, but we absolutely have, that's under his purview, but we absolutely still have our adult learning and that it takes place at our Welcome Center. We have, I think we're over a couple of 230 adult learners at this point. Like we're bursting at the seams. We offer English as a second language learning programs, high school completion, and GED.
So are we still gonna have adult ed graduation, or would it be the hub? How are we gonna do this?
Oh, no, I mean, adult ed graduation is, 100%. Yeah. The way to think about this is we have so many kids that are in our traditional high school model that aren't succeeding. Let's create something for them. The adult ed piece is very different in the sense that it really is about, yeah, and they're both great programs. And what's nice is Adam, and certainly not to speak for Adam or Sergio, but I know that both of them are always in collaboration about things like a GED or, oh, you have this program, I have this program, let's swap. So, but yeah, totally different. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll let you go too. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Do we accept students from other districts? Like if they're having credit issues and they decide, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I left that out. So we actually, every student has a story, and I would love to tell everyone of those stories, but I won't. However, your question lends itself to the answer is yes, because as we grow, we haven't marketed this yet because we're still building the plane in the air, but certainly the program in Flint has brought many, many school of choice students in, which is great from a business standpoint. But we do have 3 school of choice students that are actually at Angel House, if you're familiar. So we were introduced to them, and so we have a partnership as they get young ladies in, we will be their first go-to for education. And so we are able to enroll actually 4 young ladies. One is at a different placement. So we have 3 that are school of choice. So yes, we are able to bring them in. And so the idea would be this is also helps with graduation rate, but also essentially helps with enrollment.
Okay. So my question. What are we doing to not have this hub be overrun by referrals from the different schools? I'm not saying you guys will do it. But you have going way back, the Hill Center. You got overrun by students who weren't cutting it in high school, and it was easy to refer them to Hill. So that kind of thing. Also, how many students do you foresee that you will have at your top in a couple of years? What is your growth projection? And with all that you're doing, how do we make sure that the students that are going there are those that fit the model and not just open it up in that way?
So right off the bat, Cordelia, myself, Mitch, the 3 principals, we sat in a room and drew out some rough criteria. And so very intentional about looking at students that the traditional credit recovery programs that are in-house still couldn't have these young men and women catch up to graduate on time. So that's where most of our 35 students that we have now came from that criteria, and we'll continue to follow that criteria. So the thought is kind of breaking it down from a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. We're tier 3. So Eastern High School is tier 1, but they also run tier 2 programming for students that have fallen behind, whether it's a class or 2 or however many credits, or maybe a summer school can't get them to where they need to be. So that criteria has been set. Then the other part of that is working with the Department of School Culture on making sure that students that are suspended for whatever reason it may be, are able to stay with it, still connected with Lansing School District, and come into the hub, or our Flint program will have students that are suspended for weapons or what have you, that they're not coming on campus, but we are meeting them off campus, and we're on the phone and they're working online. So this allows us to do that as well. So we are continually working on what that criteria is, and then going back to capping it at 40 right now with the staff that we have and the space that we have, the 2 labs, quality over quantity, and not just have an influx of, okay, we have 80 students, great, but we're not living out the mission of what this program is. So Pleasant View is huge. In fact, we have the C wing plus, I don't know, 15 classrooms, I think that, and so there's plenty of room to grow. So it's a matter of keeping those labs, I say 15 to 20, because we want that 1-to-1. And many of our students, we have many students that are with us that have not fared well when it comes to behaviors in the traditional setting. And they have been absolutely amazing, which is typically the case. That is because when you have 15 to 20 students at a time in a space, and they can have their own space, and we can walk over and sit one-on-one, and there's not passing time. There's just not a lot of chances to act in such a way that they shouldn't be acting at school. So, and we build that into those conversations and the expectations and so on. So as we grow student-wise, we will have to grow staff-wise. So we also talked about what can we do within the tier 1 in the buildings, look at tier 2, where maybe there's some concepts that we can take that the hub is doing tier 3 with students that maybe aren't 12 credits behind at 18, and where we can catch them and do some things differently where they're not coming over to the hub.
Yeah, one thing that I really want to point out, this whole conversation I started with creating the systems and the structures. And Guillermo, your point is so well taken, because the way that we protect this program is to make rules so that we guarantee that it will stay small, or that there will be a certain ratio, because we will all one day leave this table. And the most important thing is to set it up so that it doesn't fail. And I think, sadly, and this is not just a Lansing thing, when something exists, sometimes people like to throw stuff at it because they don't want it to be their problem. And so for us to protect the hub and make it strong, one of the things that Adam is doing this year is really creating those rules so that we can protect it, because we know what's going to work, and that it behooves all of us at this table, the leaders of this district, to protect each of our programs. We don't want to, give, Principal Carruthers 10,000 kids and, put them inside Eastern. It's not going to work. We're not going to put 600 kids at Kendon. It's not going to work. We want to make sure that we are protecting each building, and that's where we come in. So I think the point is really well taken from Guillermo, is the way that we know it won't become these dumping grounds is by creating rules and sticking to them. And we've been spending a lot of time doing that. So we do have one more thing to share, but I know how exciting we all are with the Lansing Learning Hub. So I don't want to kill the conversation, but we got to keep it moving. And you can also see just how powerful this learning hub is, and already is, for our children. So the last, but certainly not least, is something that we want to introduce today. The principals saw this on Tuesday. It's the first time anybody has seen it outside of ET. And this is a big deal. And so this is going to be what's called the New Visions Data Portal. And we're going to move to the next slide. And I don't know, Jess, you said you liked the slide, so I'm happy to turn it over to you. And you have some good stories to say about this.
So Mark and his team flew in from New York and joined our administrative meeting on Tuesday. And it was really wonderful to see them in person, because I've only ever met them virtually on Zoom calls. And I I don't even remember when the first call came, but Ben said to several of us, there's some people I really like you to meet. I'm going to arrange a Zoom call. So we got in the Zoom call. He's like, there's this thing that we really want to do. It's EduStat. It's like looking at data, and it's this portal. And it was a lot of words that were like, okay, well, we don't really understand what this is, but let's do this. Let's see what's happening on this call. So we get on there.
I will say that's almost every meeting everybody has with me. Ben, we have no idea what the hell you're talking about, but okay.
Well, we're on board. Let's do this.
That's how great they are. They're like, sure.
We'll give it a try. And I remember sitting there, and Mark was on there, and he's like, okay, so I was a principal for a while, and, it's really hard to get data. So, you start with spreadsheets, and we have to disaggregate the spreadsheets. And he was like, there's got to be a better way to do this, because every other industry can just get their data. They can see their portal, they can see their employees, they can see the different systems, but where we're falling down is education. And so he kind of walked us through the story, and then he showed us this dashboard. And it's a very simple dashboard, which I won't reveal too much because we'll be coming up and showing you some things, but it's very simple. It's blue and white, and there's boxes and there's numbers, and it blew my mind. So it is data. I got off the phone, and Ben is going to laugh, and Christina, but I literally put my head down on the table, and I was like, are you kidding me? This has been around for how long? We will take your 1.0 version, because, they're going to give us it's not the 1.0, but the 1.0 would have been way better than anything I've ever seen or had as a principal. I know that LaDonna and Marcel are both going to tell you a little bit, but to get any type of data as a principal, you have to pull it down from multiple sources, and if you don't know Excel, wow, you're in a lot of trouble. Kurt Barnum laughed at me because my method was highlighters for a long time. He's like, we are not using highlighters. So Kurt, if you're watching, which you probably are, yes, I've told the highlighter story. But Excel is something that we have to use. And then if you want another piece of data, then you have to go back and you have to put the Excel sheet together all over again. So it's just stagnant data. This is what we've been doing, everyone, just so that you know, and I'm sure they will tell you, for how long, LaDonna?
Longer than I even want to think about remembering. It's been a very long time.
And so when we don't have access to data at our fingertips, it's really hard to make really great decisions dynamically. So when we saw what the team had to bring, we were like, how do we get this? Well, it only exists in New York City. And because of the connection that Ben has with them, this is the first time that they're actually coming out of that area and doing something with another district. So we're really lucky. The story really that he tells is that he was like, why can't we get something like this? He put together a nonprofit. He now has 50 software engineers that do all of the New York City schools and charter schools included.
Yeah, so it's kind of amazing. So New Visions, so
Yeah.
this is the scale. New Visions is a large nonprofit that was started about 30 years ago, and their idea was to help support schools. Their longtime head was a guy named Bob Hughes, and Bob was this just kind of wonderful guy who wanted to just make public schools better, and they had support. So they had a lot of coaches, and they had a lot of principal leaders and people to help these schools. And Bob actually then went off and is now the head of K-12 for the Gates Foundation. And his vice president, who Mark Dinette's the man who's now president, he was a principal. That's how I know him. We've known each other forever. And he was really a data-focused guy. And so the organization has always been this nonprofit that supported a ton of schools, but under Mark's leadership, it turned into a place that really created this software as well as the coaching and the whatever. And so you can see that they help 1,587 schools in New York, which is almost all of them. And that's, 850,000 kids. They have their own charter network, but then they also have what's called affinity schools in New York, which were public schools that they kind of do the back end office as well as the supports, as well as the coaching. And then they do this data hub for everybody. And so what's also great, we haven't used it yet because I don't want to go down this road yet. They also have created a complete series of free software for curriculum. So they actually, again, they're mainly high schools, and their principals were like, look, we don't have good curriculum. What do we do? And they created their own. It's open source, it's free, and it's really quite good. But it was really, I mean, not to make it too personal, but, you know, I've known Mark for a long time, and New Visions is really special. And for years, people have been asking them to leave New York to do this stuff. I mean, people want this, and they've never done it. And, you know, when I became superintendent, I was like, Mark, you know, you're coming to Lansing, right? And they flew out here, and they were here this week, and they did the training for the principals on Tuesday. We visited a bunch of schools. We saw Liz. We went to see Rich. We were just driving around, and what was so great was here's a team of educators, people who've been principals forever, and they come to our schools and they say, you know, look, these are our schools too. It's the same kids, same teachers, and they know how powerful this can be. So really, for the first time ever in public, we're going to show you what this is. And so we're going to call it, or they're going to call it, the Portal by New Visions. And, you know, what we're doing, of course, is we're beta testing this, so that, again, you'll see how in depth it is their programmers and our programmers have had to sit with all of our data, go through Synergy, go through everything so that they can pull it up and create something that seems simple, but we'll turn it over to the principals to tell you how they feel about it when we kind of unveil this on Tuesday. So I don't know, do you want to show it, or? So every principal has an account. They're going to log in. And then this is the district. So these are our demographics. We have 18% students with disabilities. So some of the codes are still old school New York codes. So SWD means special ed, students with disabilities. And then you can click on things like chronic absentee rates. You can look at year-to-date attendance. This is all the schools. I know this might not feel like a change, but this is so different than anything that we've ever had. And so one thing to note, I was on the phone with the lawyers for a while today. We can't give the board access to this completely. And the reason why is it does go granular all the way to the student name. So we can give you, we can sit with you and show you aggregate data, but because of FERPA, we're not going to be able to give you this. The principals, of course, can see it. But you can, just so you know, you can click on the school, then you can click on, let's say, attendance, 80% attendance, and then you'll get all the students that are 80%. You click on 90, all the students that are between 90 and 100. You can click on their credits. You can click on, you can aggregate by gender, by grade, by whatever. And now you've got this at your fingertips ability to see everything you've ever wanted to move your students towards success. Where?
That ML population, what's ML?
Oh, that's migrant.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what?
Migrant.
So the kind of the ML, it's the ESL number. It's just different language. So,
So what would this show you about an individual student?
it will show you their attendance rates and then all their demographic rates. And then on the high school level, it'll, because we're building it, show you all of their credits, how close they are to graduation, what they need, et cetera, et
And
cetera.
you're telling me that snapshot of an individual has been very difficult to construct historically.
So for example, if I wanted to get the attendance of an elementary student, I'd have to pull up ATP or whatever it is in Synergy. I pull it down individual school. I have that piece with that period. Then I want MSTEP data, so I have to go to the BAA secure site, pull that report down, put that over here. Then I want NUBA data, so I have to go to the MapPro website, pull that down. Then I have to figure out how to get those three things matched by their student IDs. Then I put those three together. Well, by then it's Tuesday and the attendance has changed, right? And so you can see, I mean, it looks, that's why I said it's gonna look super simple, but it is a game changer because you can click on it, then you put the student, and then when I click the student's name, so I can get a group then. So you could give the group to your student support specialist and say, hey, can you reach out to these 25 kids who are chronically absent and find out what the barriers are? How can we get them back in school? Then you can click on the group and say, oh, well, there's Christina, let's find out what's going on with her. You click on Christina. Puts you down, tells you where her test scores are, tells you what her grades are. It will tell you her attendance. It'll tell you which days of the week she's been absent. So it gives you this whole snapshot of who Christina is. And then I can click on and say, now what supports do we want to assign to Christina? You can assign the supports right in the portal, and it will keep that data for you. And you can also print the profile for parents when you meet with them. So it is literally at your fingertips. The coolest part, though, and I know it's not fully loaded yet, is the data grid. So the data grid is where it literally pulls down all of the information from Synergy. So when you are doing things for school improvement or you're looking for an intervention program, I can go in and say, I would like to see all of the Hispanic males in ninth grade who have this many credits, this test score, that have missed this many days. Wow. And this. Click, boom, here's your list. And you never know. That's why my head was on the table, right? I was like, seriously, you see this 30 years ago? Like, what?
Right. You don't have to kill so many trees anymore.
Yeah.
I think for those of us who are non-educators, it's hard to appreciate how difficult it's been not having this. I'm very happy for all of you and for our kids.
I said, when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer.
Yeah, this sounds
I mean, just everything that's right there. You know, we do a daily attendance. We track our attendance. I can look to see how many kids were at school, yesterday, how many by grade level. I can make that announcement right there. I can look to see how many kids need IRIPs. I mean, it's just all right there, stuff that would have taken hours to do, days to do. It's there at the click.
Every day for a principal to come up with their daily attendance rate last year, they had to run a report and then do the math to figure out the percentage. For a Kim Johnson Ray to look at all of her 10 schools and figure that out, she'd have to call me up, Donna, what's your rate today? So-and-so, what's your rate today? We have two vehicles now. We have this, and we can also go on the CAS system, pull it up, and we'll see every kid that's under the attendance rate.
I was going to ask about that.
Yes.
So the CAS system, will it fit into this? Will it feed the information, or
No.
are there two different?
They both will be compared back to Synergy.
Yeah, Synergy is the kind of the undergirdings of this, mainly because that's the legal document. We will hopefully get to a point where CAS and Synergy will talk, but we're not good enough at CAS yet that we feel comfortable, but they will. But, LaDonna, say whatever you want, but we're so, I wanted the board to have you guys here because, your voice is so important. And I think sometimes at the board, we're ET and whatever. I mean, this is what we do, I guess. But, I'd like to have more principals at board meetings and ISSs. But, I'd love the three of you to just talk about when you saw this, what it meant to you, why is this helpful? Because, not everybody here kind of understands the gravity of this. So.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because we are at the completely opposite ends of the spectrum. But for me, there's so much information that we have access to. And there's so many decisions that we need to make on a daily basis. And having something like this that I can go into one place and get the information and it's accurate. Because even being able to go in and say, okay, how many kids are needed interventions? We can actually plug in what interventions we're doing for those kids, and we can track that information and not having to go from this system to this system and progress monitoring on paper and then doing all of those things. It will really free me up to be able to spend more time in the classrooms, being able to identify those kids that I really need to be visible and tracking for attendance. What phone calls do I need to make sure my SSS is making? How are we making sure that we solve those kids' issues, that they are getting to school, so that we can start to build that positive culture of kids really enjoying school and knowing what school is about, so that when they get to him, they can be much more successful. But really having that problem-solving piece all in one place. Like I said, when I saw it, my mouth dropped, and I've been around a while, so my mouth doesn't drop that easy anymore, but it is something that I can definitely, both my using and certain members of my staff being able to use, and it's right there.
Thank you. And for me in high school, I ran up to Mr. Sheldner, and I know we've used the word game changer. I said, "This is it. This is what we're waiting on. This is it." Because I thought about our counselors and I thought about our leadership team. So we met this morning, and they're so excited right now. And just to echo what you said, Ms. Mask, we're talking about the supports and everything that we have. The one thing that we have available now is when parents come in, you talk about a profile. We can show them exactly what their child's doing instead of going to report here. Let's ask our record clerk for this. It's right at our fingertips. So for me and what we're doing with trying to meet our goals at the district, it's amazing because our ABCs, our attendance, our behavior, and our coursework is phenomenal. And I've added a D, which is disengagement. So that also allows us to talk about the supports we have in place. So we have A, B, C, and D at Eastern High School. So this program here is going to be incredible. So thank you.
So who will have access to it?
So right now we have, administrators, all of our administrators, whether that be like a central level office, like Cordelia and her team who provide support to schools, all of our principals, executive team, and then this will expand out to teachers as well. So teachers will have their class level data and be able to see all of this at the drop.
When will it be fully implemented? When will it be implemented, or is it already?
So we have the kind of the basic data that you have right now. That part is available to be used as it is. It is expanding. So we still need to implement things like behavioral data. And then at the secondary level, really what I love about Mark and his team with New Visions is this is what it is in New York, but they're going to make it what it needs to be for Lansing. And so their team is going to be working very closely with our secondary principals about what does this need to look like for secondaries. It'll have things in there about coursework, and we can look at kind of like what Jessica was explaining, what we can drill down into, how many students have failed algebra, who do we need to target, what's going on here, and we'll have all these pieces that they're going to be able to maneuver and target different student groups for support with going on. So that piece still, we're going to be working, we're having weekly meetings twice a week for a half an hour right now to keep building that piece out and really get it moving. But I know we had kind of a pre-team meeting with the secondary staff about how we're going to move forward with this and really build it out for what they need. So
How much does this cost?
That's a good question.
that one I'm going to turn over to Ben.
One of the great things about the relationship is we're trying to figure out what it should cost. What we're trying to do is be really thoughtful about this relationship and having everything above board. Typically, software like this is anywhere between $5 to $10 per kid for a district per year. So when you look at our contract for Qualtrics or a contract for Allaview or a contract for Synergy, things like that. But again, because we're iterating it with the builders, all of that is part of the deal. So, we'll talk to the board, of course, about what a contract could look like. At first, we certainly think that grant money will be able to support this because, it's just everything about it is for that. But when we kind of build the contract, we'll let everybody know. But, the hope is that, $5 to $10 per kid per year. But then what we're working, because again, this is the first time this has ever left New York, we're having conversations about, well, what should a contract look like? Like, how many hours of professional development? How do we add it? But they're building it for us, which is great. And one thing is, so like in New York, you have to take the Regents exams in order to graduate. So if you don't pass certain exams, you can't graduate high school. That's not the case in Michigan. So they're changing that to equal our 18 or 22 credits. So if you're alt ed, it's 18. If you're not, it's 22. They're building all of that as we speak. So we wanted to get in the hands of principals this data because it's still super usable. But, every month we're hoping to add more and more. My hope is that it's really done by the spring. But what's so wonderful about the relationship is we can always add more. And also knowing the state of Michigan, they might add things like, for instance, there's a new law for the personal finance. Now we can just tell Mark, add personal finance as a click, and now it'll be there. So it'll hopefully always iterate. And one of the strengths of Mark's team is they were always changing it for the better, even if a state law didn't change. It was, oh, we needed a new rule about what our definition of chronically absent is because we wanted to see that. Okay, boom, boom, boom. So, and one of the problems with Synergy, I mean, there are many, but one of the major ones is unless you are a true computer programmer, you can't make it really work for you. The issue about a school district our size, or really any size, we're not going to have a team of 50 programmers. They have a team of 50 programmers, so they're able to iterate for us in ways that we could never do ourselves. But I know there were hands and.
What will it
Can you
cost?
help me understand, when you talked about where you previously had to pull from 3 different reports or more, how will those get into here?
Right, so.
Yeah, so a lot of that data that we would originally pull would result in Synergy, but there would be in different modules. And so there wasn't a way, kind of like Bennett explains, unless you're a programmer, to go into the back end tables and pull it all together at once. And so you were pulling from attendance from this report and discipline data from this report or whatever it may be, and then combining it all together. And then taking reports from the state, like Jessica had mentioned about testing data or cohort data for graduations, and then combining those into spreadsheets. What's great about this is we're automating some of those processes. They get loaded into like a shared secure portal, and those are done nightly and uploaded into the system. So all that's kind of become an automated thing that just all feeds in here. And then all the formulas kind of put it all together and in a nice little package.
It sounds too good to me.
Well, and just to say how special this is, we've worked with, at least since I've been here, we tried to work with one other company that did something like this. One, they were not educators, they were software engineers. And we would ask them for things like, we really need to see the credits of our students to be able to properly do EWIMS, which is early warning systems, and know where our students are. Oh, we're working on it. We're working on it. Oh, well, our engineer can't handle it. We were like 8-9 months down the road. We ended up breaking our contract because they couldn't deliver what we needed because they weren't educators to begin with. So they've already built this on a system that has already predicted what we need because they've been using it at 1,500 schools. So the nice part about it is, though, that they've been really flexible to say that, like, for example, our NWEA for Michigan, the proficiency rating is different than other states. And so we just say, oh, our cutoff is this. Great. They put it right into the system for us, and there we have it. So it's been wonderful to work with people that truly understand education, because we're not fighting this battle of, well, we need this. Oh, so sorry. And then it doesn't help us because we're back to pulling other tables and charts and graphs and different things. So.
It's so great to hear the future looking brilliant for our students. And it's so good to do transformation in the schools, because it's showing me what you are telling me that we are not doing the job we're supposed to be doing now. And I'm willing for changes if that is going to benefit the students and the community. No question about that. I don't care if it's A or B, the system you are taking. My point is how we are going to do the transformation of the schools that we have today to the school that we want to have according to this information, and how much money we are going to need, and how much reform we had to do in the high schools, that they had the support that they need to support the students in the new transformation schools. And that requires time, but it's possible.
Absolutely.
And then we had to have to the board, because that is the whole district, a plan that we can support 100% and tell everybody that what is the future of our students and our community.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things again about working with a bunch of educators, Mark and I were principals together in New York, and you guys know I took over a building that had a 23% graduation rate, and within 4 years we were at 98. Mark had a similar story. We were joking at dinner afterwards. He's like, what did you say your goal for graduation was? I said, 85% by 2025. He's like, well, what is it now? I'm like, well, 62, but we're getting there. And he's like, with this, I know what you're thinking, Ben. I was like, I know, I think we can do it a year early. I was like, I don't want to tell the board that, but but the reason why, to Doc's point, is our teachers are good, our principals are good. We didn't know who we needed to help in enough time to get there. And as we all know, our cohort for graduation in Lansing is about anywhere between 600 to 800 kids. Even if it's 800, 8 kids is 1%. So all you got to move is, let's say, 64 kids. Now you're talking about 8% change. That's in 1 year. All you have to do is start to use data and say, wow, who are the kids that you need to help? Let's get there earlier. The problem has been we didn't have the hub to send them to. We didn't have tier 2 stuff to send it to. I couldn't go to Marcel or Dan or Amy and say, hey, here are the kids. Let's go work on them now. I mean, we didn't share today because it's taking a little bit longer, but the weekends at Ebersol where we're going to get kids, a credit or half a credit, all of that can now work because we know who we're talking about. And then, of course, going back to this, the survey data that you saw and the IDs, all of this stuff is part of a larger picture of that student success at the center. Who do we need to help? How do we help them? And we'll get there. So, I really appreciate what Dr. Rodriguez is saying is like, how are we going to do this? It's not going to be that much extra money. It's just about our focus and our work, knowing who we need to address. And that's what this allows us to do.
And we are
Yeah.
going to do the change, not because we are bad, we are good,
Yeah.
but we want to be better.
Absolutely.
That is the point.
Absolutely.
That is the point. It's going to take maybe 1 year to control everything that you have.
Yeah.
But it was said it's possible,
That's right.
but we had to be working together on this.
Dr. Kavanaugh?
Yeah, quickly, I just want to clarify. I think this gets to Dr. Rodriguez's point as well. So would this database track data longitudinally? So what I mean is, could you then pull down a student profile once this has been in place for 5 years and see every intervention or every whatever that's happened? Okay, so then that would allow us at the aggregate level to say, okay, every student over the past 5 years who has had X intervention now has Y change in outcome. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
So, sorry, go ahead.
So, no, I was just gonna say, so along those points, so I'm thinking of this from a systemic level, so we'll be able to say to you all. Okay, I just have to tell you guys at least 4 times during this conversations, President Lawrence has leaned over to me and asked, what does that mean? So that just goes to show that, like,
His words like aggregate. I went to law school. Yeah, we didn't talk about data. I don't know what that means.
So,
But thank you, Rachel.
But from a systemic perspective, this really helps so that when we are asking as a board, what's the data that drives us, you guys can do it without having to break your backs. And it's really helpful because we want to support the interventions that you guys need. But it's impossible if you don't know what the interventions were. And so this is really exciting that you guys are going to be able to have this data at your fingertips. So I'm really excited for our students.
I just wonder if you all could chime in and talk about how this could be a method to better support teachers and how it could impact their evaluations.
Well, I think the first thing is just that they have the information. So the amount of time that staff, teachers, principals spend trying to just get the data can now actually be spent on student achievement and individualizing instruction for students. So I think that is first and foremost.
A big thing. So for instance, one of the evaluative tools that we use for the teachers is about growth data. And so now, once we get it up and running with NWA scores and MSTEP scores, you as a teacher could go into your students' download what their first iteration of NWA scores, so your fall test, and then say, wow, this is where my kids are. Then I can download my winter test, because we do it kind of in the middle, and then say, wow, okay, these kids are making growth, these kids aren't. Maybe I need to focus here, because they'll already be able to tell you what their rating is going to be, because they will have access to this data. So it's a way, and I've been saying this since the beginning. We want to empower our professionals to be able to do the work, and this is how you do it. Mark actually, when he talks about this, uses an example of a doctor. Imagine if in your clinic, that you had to build by hand every system you used. That's what schools are like. That's crazy. You're not building the intake of patients. You're not building your billing system. But that's how schools are now. And that makes no sense. And it means that we can't do the work we're supposed to here, teaching you, saving lives, like that's what this is all about. And so the hope here is this will allow teachers to really be able to focus on the data of their kids, to not only help kids achieve, but it'll also help them achieve too and feel more successful. So, yeah.
I have a question, I just have to think about how to ask it.
You don't have any other way of asking.
So this, like anything else, is an intervention. Every intervention must be tracked objectively to gauge whether the intervention is doing what it was intended to do or not. So will the district have some maybe top 5 or top 10 outcomes that they're hoping to achieve, that they're hypothesizing will improve with this intervention, that they can then track and present as data, either internally or externally, to benefit either the company, the business, or the district, or both?
Yeah, I mean, so the great thing is, they're a nonprofit. They just want us to succeed. So we don't have to worry about them so much. But for us, absolutely. And it's going to go back to the district goals. So there's always enrollment, right? But I don't know if this is necessarily going to help for that. But we hypothesize that by allowing this tool to be used by our faculty, it will raise attendance rates and raise graduation rates. We also hope that it'll raise credit as well, but that hasn't been a big district goal. It should be. We'll get there. So we believe that by just having access to data, access to aggregating kids at the 80%, at the 90%, at the 50%, being able to say, okay, these kids now need to go see Brian Crenshaw or Sean Shaw, or they need to go to a special program at Eastern or at Everett or whatever. That's what we believe. We don't right now have a specific, plan on what we're going to use to, let's say, quote unquote, raise attendance. But this district has had so many different things that it's been trying to do. Now we can systematize it and also focus on which kids are going to do it. For graduation, the same hypotheses exist. We believe that by having access to kids' records earlier and easier, we'll be able to give whatever the method of intervention is going to be. I don't really know what those interventions are. Maybe it's the hub, right? We'll be able to say, these kids were sent to the hub and now those kids graduated and they probably wouldn't otherwise, and we'll see our kind of aggregate data. But what's nice, and Jess can talk about this, even within this software, there are ways of doing intervention. So,
We can list the district interventions or any intervention that we want to track, and then we can tag those to the individual students and then look at their longitudinal data. I think the other thing that we can't say enough is that being able to look at our demographics of our students really lends itself to the equity work that we've been talking about, because it's been very hard to trace back which demographics to which students, which interventions, what are we looking at, where are areas of need. And like I said, it's just as easy as clicking across. You can even do our special education students, our EL students, and figure out, like you said, at this school we had these interventions. Wow, that really raised this so much. This school did this intervention, not so much. And then we can share best practice across schools and kind of do some action research that way. I think that right now, LaDonna will laugh at me because we worked together for a long time, but our offices were full of binders for many, many years. And that is how we kept track of our data, and that is not a very good way to do it. So, of course you can.
I probably don't need the mic, but thank you. One of the things that I just wanted to point out too for this system is that there are so many different reports, right, in Synergy that you can pull 100 different reports. And so, if you asked us all to bring you attendance data, more than likely you were going to have 10 different reports, right? This way, everybody's looking at the same thing, right? There's no manual, there's no human on our end that's pulling the reports and pulling the data, and of course, then doing the math. And
User error.
right, so I just wanted to point that
Right.
out.
I mean, you all know when you walk into the conference room, I have those charts on the wall. I won't need those anymore, and it's ridiculous that I have to have somebody come in and calculate the daily attendance of our district. Now I am smart enough to just press a button and I can get it. I mean, we'll still probably have it on the wall for a while, but this is it. So I know it's getting late. I want to be respectful of time. Before we end our presentation, I want to turn it back over to the principals. First of all, to thank you for spending the evening with us. We know how long your days are and how much you do for our kids. But if there's anything you guys want to say, the mic is yours, and tell them how much of a jerk your superintendent is. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I just want to make sure that you guys have a voice in front of the board.
I just want to say thank you very much for allowing us to have this opportunity to speak with you. We know how important it is, and we're looking to meet our district goals. And by having a tool like the portal by New Visions and things of this nature is going to help us out. So we're excited. Our teachers are excited, and our leadership team. So thank you also very much for allowing me this opportunity.
Yes, I agree with what he said, and just to be able to have things that are tools that will be able to help us do what we want to do and to meet the district goals, and we really appreciate the support that you're giving us.
That's very nice.
Anything else from the board? I have something to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just appreciate you all. I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I mean, I'm a product of the Lansing School District. I have an 11th grader here at Everett. Ben, give me some. Yes, this is great. I just want to say thank you so much for serving our students and serving the community. And I'm looking forward to serving you all. And I think we're all looking forward to serving you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Oh, yeah.
Video?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, it will end on that. How wonderful, right? I love it.
We have popcorn
For the-
so
for
cute.
the- Yeah, so yeah, right. So just to preface, of course, is that from September 15th to October 15th was Hispanic Heritage Month. We have 2 days left, and like last year, and hopefully for years to come, we want to do a video to really celebrate. So, John, yeah, thank you.
So that's every month.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Hoy haré lo mejor que pueda, escucharé, seguiré las instrucciones, seré amable y honesto, respetaré a otros, puedo aprender, voy a aprender, estoy orgulloso de mí. Muy bien, y los costumbres de Luton.
Hispanic Heritage Month is very important, very meaningful at Luton. We celebrate our Hispanic culture throughout the year, but between September 15th and October 15th, we get to spend additional time really celebrating the various cultures, food, student performances, and arts in every classroom.
Hispanic Heritage Month means a lot to me. As a Mexican-American, Chicana, Latina, I'm always looking for ways to highlight our heritage. At our school, we have many opportunities to highlight our people. As a first-generation Latina here in the Lansing School District, Spanish was my first language. So representation was always very important to me. Are there people that look like me? Are there people that sound like me.
As a second generation Latino, I was the first one in my family to go to college. So working in education, it's really provided an opportunity to dedicate my life to help celebrate not only our culture, but the importance of education while celebrating our heritage and traditions.
Part of our work is making sure that our people are represented. Teachers integrate the culture through music, so the kids get to learn, who we are, where we're from. Hispanic Heritage Month is a really exciting time.
I am actually from the Dominican Republic, and my son is gonna be a first generation for my side of the family born here. I grew up and was raised in the Dominican Republic, so the Hispanic Heritage Month means a lot to me.
I came to this country at the age of 2 years old, and so I had kind of an interesting experience navigating school and culture, and I think that Latinos are an important part of society. We contribute a lot, so I think it's important for our youth to see that and feel encouraged to reach for their dreams and follow those goals that they have for themselves. So Hispanic Heritage Month provides a lot of opportunities for students to pursue their interests. I think it's fantastic that as a Lansing School District community, we're coming together to celebrate this month and educate our students that come from different backgrounds about the different cultures that exist within their school. Lansing School District has a variety of diverse cultures and students from different countries. Hispanic students make up a little under 20% of our student population. And so with that being said, it's very meaningful that we take time as a community and as a district to acknowledge the rich culture of Hispanic heritage, but also provide opportunities to those students that may not normally have access to different programs, events. It's a time to focus on that. And I'm very thankful that we take that time here in Lansing School District.
Definitely we have different culture. When we're talking about Hispanics, we are talking about people coming from different countries, people that were here even before United States was created. We are talking about groups, but we are talking ethnic group called Latinos, Hispanics, and I think for them to know about their culture, their parents' traditions, their values, their names, and to be proud of what they belong to is important to them. I enjoy this Hispanic Heritage Month, and I enjoy to see many young people right now celebrating.
Durante este mes festejamos y celebramos los hispanos que pertenecen a nuestras escuelas, a nuestra comunidad, a nuestro estado y a este país que tiene tanta diversidad. Los hispanos en Lansing y en las escuelas de Lansing tienen una historia de muchas generaciones. Han sido y siguen siendo gran parte de la población que educamos, que aprendemos de ellos, que ellos aprenden de nosotros y que juntos hacemos esto que sea una comunidad mucho más alegre, feliz, con ideas diferentes, comidas diferentes, culturas diferentes, música diferente, todos los componentes de nuestra cultura que realmente hacen que Lansing sea una ciudad muy especial. A ustedes, a los niños, a los padres, a los abuelos y a los familiares, les deseamos un gran mes y a festejar esta comunidad que es gran parte de nuestra sociedad. Que se diviertan y que aprendan mucho y a continuar con nuestra cultura que es tan importante. Gracias.
Well, I think the board has to continue supporting not only 1 month but 12 months, and how we can make a difference the way we are going to make different many other things, and how all people learn about each other in our schools. And I hope that will be a vision for the future too. Super.